Okay. All right, folks, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Daily Power Parsha. It is great to see you all, and I just want to check in and make sure that, can everybody see, not this screen, can everybody see, whoops, I shared the wrong screen here. Let's share the correct screen. Here we go. Boom. Okay, can everybody see that screen that I just shared? Thumbs up if you can see it. Yeah? Okay, great. Torah reading for Tzav. This week's Torah portion is Tzav. So before we continue, I'd like to mention, once again, like to welcome everybody in. We have Ray, we have Matt, we have Amy and Eli, we have Danny, we have Karen, we have Charna, we have Stephanie, Sandrine just joined us. Okay, great. It's good to see everybody. So every day we study a section of the weekly Torah portion, and today we're going to study the 5th section of Tzav, which corresponds to Thursday. Yeah, I can't believe it, right? It's Thursday already. It's pretty incredible how these days and weeks are going. But here we are. Okay, so we're right in the middle of the inauguration of the Mishkan. Before the Mishkan, before the tabernacle opened for business, there was an inauguration. I don't mean to draw a literal connection. I mean a literal, exact connection, parallel. But it's interesting, when some restaurants, before they open, they do I forgot what it's called. What's it called when a restaurant does a limited opening and they have, like a limited menu to kind of try out the chef and try out the kitchen and make sure the process is working okay? Does anybody know what that's called? You can unmute yourself.
Tasting. A soft opening.
Soft opening, yes. Yes, it's a soft opening, right. It's a tasting soft opening. So that's kind of, sort of, but not at all like what happened with the Mishkan. But only kind of, sort of, right? So what happens? The Mishkan is, welcome Mark, welcome Max, welcome Joy. Great to see you guys. All right, so the Mishkan, before it opened to the public, before the tabernacle opened for business, there was a 7-day inauguration period. And for these 7 days, the priests, the Kohanim, were inaugurated. They were trained in their jobs, what they needed to do. They got dressed in the garments of the priesthood. They offered, they didn't really offer the sacrifices. Moses offered sacrifices on their behalf to kind of show them what to do and how to do it, and also to get things inaugurated. By the way, not surprisingly, next week's Torah portion is called Shmini. What does Shmini mean? Shmini means 8. Why is next week's Torah portion called 8? Because it's talking about the 8th day of the inauguration, which, by the way, wasn't really the 8th day of inauguration, but was opening day. There were 7 days of inauguration, and then you had opening day, which is day number 8, relative to day number 1. But that's all next week. So this week we talk about the 7 days of inauguration and the sacrifices that Moses brought. Interestingly enough, as you know, as history will unfold, only Kohanim, only the priests, will be able to bring the offerings. But in this 7-day inauguration period, Moses, a Levite, brought the karbanot, brought the sacrifices, brought the offerings. This was the only time that a Levite, that a non-Kohen, was bringing the sacrifices, and this was to get everything inaugurated and to get the ball rolling. Mark, if you are still with us. Yes, Mark, are you still with us? Mark, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Mark, you're a Levite.
Yes, I am.
You're from Moses.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
We've been barbecuing meat for a long time.
I want to tell you something. You're not about barbecuing anymore. That was only for 7 days. Now you're about singing. Let me mute you first. So the bottom line is that this is what happened in these 7 days. Talks about 2 offerings in this reading. I want to start so here we are. Look at the screen. Leviticus chapter 8. We start from verse 14. That's reading number 5, corresponding to Thursday. So the Torah tells us, first thing is that he brought the sin offering bull close. There were various sacrifices and offerings that Moses brought for the inauguration. There was an Olah offering, which is a burnt offering or an elevation offering. Could either be called elevation or burnt offering, either way. We had the sin offering, and we also had a shlomim, a peace offering. All different, 3 different offerings. Here we talk about the bull or the sin offering. So the question that's asked is, what's the sin? Why is he bringing the sin offering? Who messed up? Who did something wrong here? What's going on? And our sages tell us that no, this wasn't a sin offering for any particular sin. This was a sin offering on behalf of the altar itself. I'm going to say that again. This was a sin offering on behalf not of an individual who committed a sin, but rather it was to atone for the altar itself. The Mizbeach, the altar itself. Now, the question is, what does that actually mean? There's a way that sometimes people understand it that, if the altar is going to help atone or help people atone for their sins, it has to be cleansed of all potential sin of its own. Right? So for the altar to help others, it has to first be clean of all sin. So it has to be atoned for first before it can help others be atoned for. So that's why the first sin offering is brought on behalf of the altar. Okay, but what does that mean? It still seems a little strange, to be honest. Because, Hey, Donna, so what are we talking about here? Right? Why does the altar need to be atoned for? What did the altar do wrong? I want to share with you a really interesting commentary about this that really makes sense of this entire discussion. So as you may know, when the Jewish people donated for the Mishkan, Moses put out the call, hey guys and gals, we need gold, we need silver, we need copper, we need tchelet, which is like blue wool. We need this material and that fabric and the other fabric. These are all the things that we need. Moses put out the call, and the Torah tells us that the people responded in spades. I don't know if that's the right expression, but they responded incredibly enthusiastically. They responded with generosity that was unparalleled. To the point that at a certain moment in time, Moses actually tells the people, it's enough. Stop bringing. No more. We can't use any more materials. We are maxed out. This is the first and last time that a Jewish leader ever put an end to a campaign and called it and stopped taking donations. But that's what happened with the building of the Mishkan. There was so much generosity, so much giving. But the commentaries point out the following, that not everyone that gave did so 100% of their own wishes. What do I mean? Sometimes there's a popular movement or a populist movement and a popular movement, and people can get swept up in the movement even if they're not 100% on board. So our sages tell us that there were people who donated to the Mishkan who maybe didn't really want to, or maybe really weren't so super enthusiastic about giving, but because everyone else was giving, and everyone else was swept up with the Mishkan tabernacle donation fever, they felt the wave of excitement carried through the entire nation and lifted up even those that on their own maybe wouldn't have been so generous of heart and of giving. And while that giving was a mitzvah, on some level, we might say that the giving was a little bit, what's the right word I'm looking for? It was not so wholehearted. It wasn't 100%. So to atone for the lack of 100% of giving, that's what the sin offering did. Now, how did the sin offering atone for the lack of 100% giving? The mechanics of it, I don't know that I have that worked out in my head. But this is what the commentaries say. What was the sin? What was being atoned for? It was the giving that was done that wasn't 100% of the person's, maybe of the person's own volition, but because of the atmosphere of giving, they also gave. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that when we do a mitzvah, it shouldn't be because of peer pressure. It shouldn't be because everyone else is doing it. It should be because we want to do it. That's the goal. That's the ideal. The ideal is that we're excited about Torah and mitzvot, that we're excited to give the donations to the Mishkan, we're excited to support good causes, we're excited to wrap tefillin, we're excited to light Shabbat candles, not just because somebody or someone, something guilted us into doing it or pressured us into doing it. That's why in general, I'm not really keen on the whole pressure Judaism. Oh, you got to do this mitzvah or else, why else did we survive the Holocaust? There's a lot of the whole guilt angle in Judaism. I don't know that it's that effective for everybody. And number two, it's really not the reason why we should be doing things. Jewish continuity. Why? Because otherwise, Hitler, Yamach Shemo, will have won. That's not why. That's not why. Why Judaism? Because it's valuable, because we believe in it, because we love it. Why a mitzvah? Because it's important for us. Reminds me of a story. The Rebbe was once encouraging somebody on their path toward more Torah study and mitzvah observance, and at a certain point, I don't remember the exact details of the story, but you'll get the general gist of it. At a certain point, the fellow indicated to the Rebbe that he was going to start growing a beard. Now, as some of you may know, a beard is a very, in Judaism, it's considered to be kind of cool and holy. Not only is it hipsterish cool today, Pond City Market style, but also there's a tradition in Kabbalah and Hasidic doctrine, etc., that a beard has special powers. It says the 13 attributes of divine mercy rest on the beard. That's what it says. Whatever. So even when I'm not feeling so kind, at least my beard is. I'm kidding. But anyway, so beards are kind of special. Now, so this person in his journey says to the Rebbe, or writes a letter to the Rebbe saying something like he's going to start growing out his beard. Because if you're doing it because I want you to do it, then it's going to be my beard and not your beard. That's what the Rebbe told him. That's the punchline. Don't grow out my beard. Grow out your beard. Do the mitzvah because you want to do the mitzvah. Don't do it because you feel pressure. Now, there is something to be said about sometimes doing something that maybe we're not 100%, on board with, or we don't yet fully understand or feel, but we do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And that, of course, is always valuable and important. I don't want to take away from that. But what's the ideal? That's why none of the donations of the Mishkan were actually returned to those that didn't give wholeheartedly. They didn't say, well, if you didn't really want to give it, there's a refund period. No, because at the end of the day, it's a mitzvah. Right? No returns, no receipts, no nothing. But the message here, the positive message is how beautiful it is to really mean it and to really want to give or to do the mitzvah. That's the ideal. So in our lives, we should strive not to just do things, do mitzvot because, somebody else would want us to do it. Babi, Zaidi, the rabbi, whatever. But do it because we want to do it. And then we're really connected with the mitzvah. So that's one idea. I want to share one more quick idea. And that is, this is going to be a very quick idea. It is, where's my Ola offering? Oh, here we go. Verse 18. Okay, verse 18. So Moshe brings the sin offering, as we just talked about, and he also brings the burnt offering ram, the Ola, also known as the elevation offering. Ola as aliyah, which means elevation, but it sometimes translated as burnt, elevation, whatever. Our sages tell us that in the stead, in the place of the offerings, because we don't have a temple today. So instead of the offerings, we have prayer. We have prayer. Prayer and meditation takes the place of the olah, of the burnt offering. So one might ask the question, so why back in the day did they even bother with a temple? They could have just prayed and meditated. And when Mashiach comes, who says we should bring back the sacrifices anyway? Maybe just prayer and meditation if it does the same thing. So the Hasidic masters explain that on some level, on a spiritual level, it does the same thing. Prayer and meditation accomplishes spiritually the same thing as the sacrifices. But there's one thing that it doesn't accomplish, and that is the elevation of the physical environment. You see, when you brought an animal sacrifice together with the other minerals and plants and other items that we talked about last week that were brought with the animal, what was happening was, there was, on a physical level, you were elevating the world stuff around you toward God. This was the purpose of that being, is to become connected with God in this way through the sacrifice. And when we pray and meditate, we're connecting with God, but the physical environment around us might not be. And that's why there's still a place for a physical offering. That's the insight. But here's the takeaway, at least for me. And that is, good intentions and good thoughts are wonderful, but they don't make the world a better place until we do something about it. One of my favorite lines is, well, it's two lines, but whatever. Lines, plural, is there were three frogs on a log, and two decided to jump. How many are left? And the answer is 3, because deciding to jump is not the same as jumping, right? Two decided to jump. Yeah, sure, they decided to jump. Until they jump into the water, they're still on the log. And so the message here is, meditation is wonderful, not to discount prayer and meditation. It's all wonderful. But are we making the world in a very tangible, practical, physical way a better place? And that's really the question that we have to ask ourselves. It's not a question to ask ourselves. It's a call to action to do. Do something to make the world a better place. By the way, on a very practical level, here's my suggestion. There are a lot of people that are at home now by themselves. People that we know, friends, family, relatives, even the distant third cousin once removed. We're working on twice removing them. I'm kidding, right? That distant relative. So let's pick up the phone and reach out to somebody. There was a commercial in the 80s. Reach out and touch someone, right? Wasn't there a jingle or something, MCI or something, AT&T, Ma Bell, whatever it was? So let's do something. Let's not only feel empathy for others that are, we're all in this together and we feel kind of empathetic to ourselves and to others, but let's actually bring the animal sacrifice. Not just the prayer and meditation, but bring the animal. In other words, bring it down, all the way down to the world of action. Let's do something about it. That's just one example. There are many other examples that we can do, hopefully from the comfort of our homes, because it's not necessarily safe to leave, certainly not en masse. So that's it for today. That's all I have for today, and I hope you found that interesting and inspiring, and feel free to unmute yourself so we can have a conversation and discuss.